When I found that receipt in my wife's purse, I thought I'd caught her cheating. I had no idea she was conspiring with our biggest business rival to destroy everything I'd built. She thought I was just another clueless husband who'd roll over and take it. She was dead wrong. By the time she realized what was happening, I'd already vanished without a trace and taken everything with me. My name is Marvin Payne. I'm 41 years old, and until recently, I thought I had it all figured out. I built Payne Construction from the ground up, starting with nothing but a pickup truck and a toolbox 15 years ago. My wife, Brielle, and I turned it into something bigger. We expanded into luxury real estate, flipping high-end properties, building custom homes for the wealthy folks in our town. Together, we were unstoppable. Or so I thought. We met when I was 26 and she was 21, fresh out of college with a business degree and ambitions bigger than our small Georgia town. I was working construction for another company back then, but Brielle saw potential in me that I didn't even see in myself. She pushed me to start my own business, helped me get my contractor's license, even co-signed on the loan for my first work truck. "You're going to be somebody important," she used to tell me, running her fingers through my hair as we sat on the porch of our tiny starter home. I can feel it. Maybe that was the problem. Maybe she fell in love with the man she thought I could become, not the man I actually was. We got married 3 years later, and Owen came along when I was 28. That kid became my whole world. Watching him take his first steps across the hardwood floors I'd install myself, teaching him to throw a football in the backyard, helping him with his homework at the kitchen table. Those were the moments that made all the long days and aching muscles worth it. By the time Owen turned 15 this past spring, our construction and real estate business was pulling in serious money. We had a beautiful house on 5 acres outside town, complete with a workshop where I restored classic cars and Owen was learning to work with his hands. Brielle had her real estate office downtown, selling million-dollar properties to Atlanta executives looking for weekend retreats. From the outside, we looked like the American dream. Inside, something had started to rot. It began with small things. Brielle staying late at the office more often. New clothes that seemed too expensive, even with our income. A distance in her eyes when she looked at me, like she was calculating something I couldn't quite figure out. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you about the receipt that started all. It was a Tuesday evening in June, and I was looking for some cash to tip the pizza delivery guy. Brielle always kept loose bills in her purse, crumpled 20s and 10s from client meetings and coffee runs. I reached into her leather handbag, sitting on the kitchen counter, fingers searching for folded bills among the usual clutter of lipstick tubes and business cards. Instead, my hand closed around a piece of paper. A receipt from Vintage and Vine, that upscale wine shop in Buckhead, nearly 2 hours from our house. I almost tossed it aside, but something made me look closer. The timestamp showed 3:47 p.m. the previous Friday. Brielle had told me she was showing a property to clients all afternoon that day. But this receipt told a different story. 1 bottle of Dom Perignon champagne, artisanal chocolates, imported candles, and fresh strawberries. Total, $347. My stomach dropped like a stone. I stood there in my kitchen, holding that receipt like it was a live grenade. $347 on luxury items that never made it to our house. Champagne I never tasted. Candles I never saw. Strawberries that never sat in our refrigerator. The pizza guy knocked, jolting me back to reality. I shoved the receipt into my pocket, grabbed some cash from my wallet, and tried to act normal. But my hands were shaking as I handed over the 20. "Keep the change," I told him, my voice sounding strange even to my own ears. Brielle was upstairs in our bedroom, probably getting ready for another late night at the office. Owen was in his room doing homework, headphones on, lost in whatever music 15-year-olds listen to these days. Normal Tuesday night in the Payne household, except nothing felt normal anymore. I sat at the kitchen table, pizza growing cold in front of me, and studied that receipt like it held the secrets of the universe. Vintage and Vine was a high-end place where wealthy Atlanta folks bought wine for special occasions. Not the kind of place you go alone. Not the kind of place you go to buy romantic items for nobody. When Brielle came downstairs 20 minutes later, she looked like she was heading to a business meeting. Hair perfect, makeup fresh, wearing that black dress that used to drive me crazy when she wore it for me. "Working late again tonight," she announced, grabbing her keys from the counter. "Big client wants to see 3 more properties tomorrow, so I need to prepare the presentations." I looked up from my untouched pizza. Which properties? For just a split second, she hesitated. The Hartwell Estates. You know, those new constructions near the lake. I nodded like I believed her, but my mind was already working. The Hartwell development was our project. I'd built those houses myself. Brielle knew every detail about them already. She could give those presentations in her sleep. Don't wait up, she said, leaning down to kiss my cheek. Her perfume was different tonight. More expensive. More seductive. I won't, I replied, admitted in ways she couldn't imagine. After her car disappeared down our driveway, I sat there for another 10 minutes, thinking. Then I made a decision that would change everything. I walked upstairs to Owen's room and knocked on his door frame. He pulled off his headphones and looked up from his computer. Hey, Dad. What's up? Owen, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. His face got serious. That kid was sharp. He could read people better than most adults. Has your mother seemed different to you lately? Acting strange, maybe? Owen glanced toward his bedroom door, then back at me. He lowered his voice. Yeah, actually, she's been gone a lot more. And last week, I heard her on the phone in her office, laughing in this weird way. Like, not her normal laugh. My stomach tightened. What do you mean? I don't know how to explain it. It sounded like how she used to laugh with you when I was little. But you weren't there. Smart kid. Too smart. Dad, is everything okay? I looked at my son, 15 years old, tall like me, with his mother's eyes, but thankfully my sense of loyalty. In that moment, I made another decision. Owen, can you keep a secret? Owen's eyes widened, but he nodded slowly. Yeah, Dad, I can keep a secret. I sat down on the edge of his bed and pulled out the receipt. I found this in your mother's purse tonight. He took it, scanning the items and the timestamp. His face went pale as he processed what he was seeing. Dad, this is from last Friday. Mom said she was at the office until 8 that night, showing the Henderson property. She brought home Chinese food and complained about how exhausted she was from dealing with difficult clients all day. Smart kid. He was putting it together faster than I wanted him to. But maybe that was for the best. Owen, I need you to help me with something, but it might be hard for you. Your mother. I think she's seeing someone else. His jaw tightened, and I saw a flash of anger in his eyes that reminded me of myself at his age. I already figured that out, Dad. That surprised me. How long have you known? Last month, I was homesick from school with that stomach bug. Mom thought I was asleep upstairs, but I came down to get some water. I heard her on the phone in her office, talking to someone named Cody. She was telling him she missed him and couldn't wait to see him again. She was using this voice I'd never heard before, all soft and flirty. My blood turned to ice. Cody Hendricks. I knew exactly who that was, and it made everything 10 times worse. Dad, Cody Hendricks owns Hendricks Development, right? The company that's been trying to buy out our contracts. Owen had been around our business long enough to understand the major players. Cody had been circling our best deals for months, underbidding us on projects, trying to steal our clients with promises he couldn't keep. And now he was stealing my wife too. What do you need me to do? Owen asked, his voice steady and determined. I need you to be my eyes and ears when I'm not here. When your mother makes phone calls, when she leaves the house at odd times, when she acts suspicious. But Owen, this stays between us. No matter what happens, no matter what your mother says or does, this conversation never happened. He nodded firmly, and I saw something in his expression that made me proud and sad at the same time. She's hurting you, Dad. She's hurting our family. Whatever you need to do to protect us, I'm on your side. That night, I started planning. Not just watching and gathering evidence, but preparing for what needed to happen next. If Brielle wanted to play games with our marriage, I made sure I was playing by my own rules. The workshop became my headquarters. While Brielle thought I was just tinkering with car parts, I was actually researching private investigators, consulting lawyers who specialize in asset protection, and learning about offshore banking options that would keep my money safe for whatever legal battle was coming. The next evening, Owen came to my workshop with information that made my stomach drop and my anger flare. Dad, Mom got a call from Cody while you were at the hardware store picking up those hinges. She went in her office and locked the door, but I listened through the heating vent like you taught me when we were trying to figure out what was wrong with the furnace last winter. I set down my wrench and looked at my son, 15 years old, and already learning that the world could be a brutal place where the people you trust most can stab you in the back. What did you hear? They're meeting tomorrow night at the Marriott downtown. Room 247. Cody said he had a surprise for her, and she laughed and said she had one for him too. Dad, it made me sick listening to it. I put my hand on Owen's shoulder. You did good, son. Tomorrow I need you to stay at your friend Tyler's house after school. Don't come home until I call you, no matter what time it is. What are you going to do? Get proof that will stand up in court. The next evening, I followed Brielle to the Marriott. She parked near the side entrance, carrying a small overnight bag I'd never seen before, expensive leather with gold hardware that probably cost more than most people's car payments. 20 minutes later, Cody Hendricks pulled up in his silver BMW, the same arrogant smirk on his face that I'd seen at construction meetings. I took photos with a high-resolution camera I'd borrowed from my buddy, who did insurance investigations. Brielle walking into the hotel, checking her appearance in the glass doors. Cody following her, carrying what looked like a bottle of champagne. The timestamp on my camera showed 6:47 p.m., the exact same time she'd told me she was meeting with potential buyers for the Riverside development. But I needed more than photos. I needed leverage that would protect Owen and me from whatever legal nightmare was coming. That's when I remembered something crucial about our business structure. We had contracts with 3 major developments that Cody's company desperately wanted, contracts worth over $2 million in guaranteed revenue. Contracts that were in both my and Brielle's names, but which I had the legal authority to modify under our partnership agreement. Over the next week, I quietly started transferring those contracts to shell companies I created through a lawyer in Atlanta who specialized in asset protection. If Brielle wanted to play games with our marriage, I'd make sure she couldn't destroy our business in the process. 2 weeks after discovering Brielle's betrayal, I sat in my lawyer's office in Atlanta, 3 hours from home, where nobody would recognize me. Thomas Blackwood specialized in asset protection for high-net-worth individuals going through messy divorces. His office looked like something out of a movie: dark wood, leather chairs, and law books that probably cost more than most people's cars. "Mr. Payne," he said, reviewing the documents I brought him, "you've done impressive preliminary work. The shell companies you've created are legally sound, and transferring those construction contracts was brilliant. But we need to go deeper." He pulled out a thick folder. "I'm going to help you create what we call a financial fortress. Multiple layers of protection that will make it nearly impossible for your wife to claim half of what you've built, especially given her obvious intent to commit fraud." Over the next hour, Thomas outlined a strategy that was both legal and devastating. We created offshore trusts in the Cayman Islands, transferred my premarital assets to entities she couldn't touch, and established a complex web of holdings that would take years for any divorce attorney to unravel. "The beauty of this approach," Thomas explained, "is that everything appears above board. You're not hiding assets. You're protecting them through legitimate business structures." The most crucial element was something called a domestic asset protection trust. I transferred ownership of our most valuable properties, including our house, to a trust controlled by an independent trustee. Brielle could live there, but she couldn't sell it or claim it in a divorce. "What about our joint business accounts?" I asked. "Leave them untouched for now. We don't want to alert her to what's happening. But I want you to document every penny she spends on this affair. Hotel receipts, restaurant bills, gifts for her lover. All of it becomes evidence of marital waste." Meanwhile, Owen had become my perfect spy. That evening, he reported that Brielle had received a package from a jewelry store, a diamond bracelet worth at least $5,000, based on the box and receipt he'd glimpsed. She hid it in her closet behind the winter coats, Owen said. "But Dad," I heard her on the phone with Cody. "They're planning something big. Something about after the paperwork goes through." I felt my jaw clench. "What kind of paperwork?" "I don't know, but she mentioned lawyers and said something about how Marvin won't know what hit him." My blood ran cold. Donovan Pierce, I knew that name. He owned the biggest IT consulting firm in our region, a direct competitor to several of our commercial clients who needed tech infrastructure for their buildings. Cody wasn't just stealing my wife. He was using her to gather intelligence on our entire business network. The breakthrough came on a Thursday night when Owen delivered information that changed everything. "Dad, Mom's planning a weekend trip. She told me she's going to a real estate conference in Savannah, but I overheard her making hotel reservations for 2 people at the Ritz-Carlton. She specifically requested a suite with an ocean view and champagne service." I felt something cold and calculating settle in my chest. "When?" "This Friday through Sunday. She already told you about the conference, right?" She had. 3 days ago, Brielle had mentioned the Georgia Real Estate Summit, with the practiced ease of someone who'd been lying for months. She'd even show me the fake conference brochure she'd printed from some website. "Owen, this is perfect. I need you to stay at your cousin Danny's house this weekend. Tell your mom you're helping him with his science project." What are you going to do? Something your mother will never see coming. That Friday morning, I kissed Brielle goodbye and watched her load a suitcase into her BMW. She was dressed like she was going to a business meeting, but I noticed the new lingerie bag tucked discreetly in her overnight case. "I'll call you tonight after the keynote speech," she said, her lies flowing like water. "Have a safe trip," I replied, meaning it in ways she couldn't imagine. The moment her car disappeared, I made a phone call that set everything in motion. "Thomas, it's Marvin. She's gone for the weekend. Time to execute phase 2. Within 2 hours, I had professional movers at the house, not to take my things, but to inventory and photograph everything valuable. Every piece of furniture, every appliance, every item that could be considered marital property. Thomas's people documented it all with the precision of FBI evidence technicians. Then came the critical move. I transferred the contents of our joint business accounts, not to steal them, but to place them in an escrow account controlled by Thomas's firm. When Brielle tried to access the money on Monday, she'd find nothing but a legal notice explaining that all marital assets were being preserved pending investigation of potential fraud. But the real surprise was waiting in her closet. Saturday morning, while she was probably having breakfast in bed with Cody, I had a locksmith change all the locks on our house. I also had security cameras installed in every room, with signs posted clearly stating that the premises were under surveillance for insurance purposes. When Brielle came home Sunday evening, she'd find herself locked out of her own house, with all her personal belongings packed neatly in boxes on the front porch. The note I left was simple. "Brielle, your lies have consequences. Check your email for legal documents. The marriage is over. Marvin." But I wasn't done. The real masterstroke was the registered letter waiting for Cody Hendricks at his office Monday morning. Monday morning brought chaos exactly as I planned. Brielle spent the night at a hotel after finding herself locked out, and by 8 a.m., my phone was buzzing with angry calls I didn't answer. Instead, I was 2 states away in North Carolina, meeting with a man who specialized in helping people disappear legally. Robert Thompson was probably not his real name, but he came highly recommended by Thomas Blackwood. His office was a small, unmarked building in a strip mall that looked like nothing special from the outside. "Mr. Payne," he said, reviewing my case file, "you want a complete identity change, not just relocation. That's more complex, but given your circumstances, entirely justified." Over the next 4 hours, Robert walked me through the process of becoming someone else. Legal name change through the courts, new social security number through a complex but legitimate process involving identity theft victim protocols, even a new birth certificate that would pass any background check. "The key," Robert explained, "is creating a believable backstory. You've been living off the grid for years, working construction jobs for cash, finally deciding to rejoin society. That explains why there's no credit history or digital footprint before now." The cost was substantial, $50,000, but I had that much sitting in cryptocurrency accounts Brielle never knew existed. Money I'd earned from side projects and investments over the years. "What about my son?" I asked. "That's the tricky part. You can't legally take him without custody proceedings. But if he's 15 and wants to live with you, family court will usually listen, especially if his mother is facing criminal charges." By Wednesday, Owen was staying with his cousin while Brielle dealt with lawyers and angry phone calls from Cody, whose business was apparently falling apart after losing her contracts. I picked Owen up Thursday afternoon and drove him to a small town in Tennessee where I'd already rented a house under my new identity. "Dad, this is incredible," Owen said, looking around our new place. It was simple but clean, a 3-bedroom ranch with a big garage where I could work on cars and he could learn more about mechanics. "Owen, in a few weeks, you're going to have to decide if you want to stay here with me or go back to Georgia with your mother. If you stay, we'll be starting completely over. New names, new life, new everything." He didn't hesitate. "I'm staying with you, Dad. After what she did, I don't want anything to do with her." That evening, I called Thomas with an update. "The identity change is in process. Owen's with me, and he wants to stay." "What's happening with Brielle?" She's desperate, Thomas replied. Her lawyer contacted me about a settlement. She wants to keep the house and half the business assets. I told him she's not in a position to make demands. What about Cody? Interesting development there. Seems he's married too, and his wife found out about the affair. She's filing for divorce and wants half of Hendrick's development. Between losing your contracts and a messy divorce, he might be looking at bankruptcy. Perfect. They destroyed each other just like I'd hoped. 2 months into our new life in Tennessee, I was David Sullivan, a 41-year-old construction contractor with a clean background and a teenage son named Ryan. Owen had adapted to his new identity with the resilience that had made me proud of him from day one. We were working together in our garage, restoring a 1969 Camaro I'd bought from a local seller, when my secure phone rang. It was Thomas Blackwood. Marvin, or should I say David? I have news. Brielle's lawyer wants to arrange a meeting. She's apparently in serious financial trouble. How serious? She lost the house to foreclosure after she couldn't make the mortgage payments. Remember, you transferred ownership to that trust, so she had no legal right to refinance or sell. She's been living in a cheap apartment and working for a discount real estate firm. I felt a grim satisfaction. What about Cody? Hendrick's development filed for bankruptcy last month. His wife took him for everything in the divorce, and without your contracts, he couldn't maintain cash flow. He's working as a project manager for someone else's company now. And Brielle wants what exactly? She claims she needs money for basic living expenses. Her lawyer is threatening to expose your disappearance to authorities unless you agree to some kind of support arrangement. I thought for a moment. Watching Owen work on the car's transmission with the focus and determination I tried to teach him. Set up the meeting. But not here. Somewhere public. Somewhere she'll understand exactly how much her choices cost her. A week later, I drove back to Georgia for the first time since disappearing. The meeting was at a restaurant in Atlanta, neutral territory, where Brielle's lawyer thought she'd have some advantage. I walked in wearing work clothes and boots, looking exactly like what I'd become, a successful contractor who'd built a good life through honest work. Brielle was already there with her attorney, and she looked like hell. Thin, tired, wearing clothes that had seen better days. Hello, Brielle, I said, sitting down across from her. She stared at me like she was seeing a ghost. Marvin, you look different. I'm different. You made sure of that. Her lawyer, a nervous-looking man in an expensive suit, cleared his throat. Mr. Payne, my client is requesting spousal support and a division of marital assets that were hidden during the separation. I laughed, actually laughed, and pulled out a manila folder. Here's what your client is getting. Divorce papers signed by a judge, a restraining order preventing her from contacting me or my son, and evidence that her affair and business sabotage constituted marital waste under Georgia law. Brielle's face went white. You can't just disappear and leave me with nothing. I didn't leave you with nothing, I replied calmly. I left you with exactly what you brought to our marriage before you decided to destroy it, which, if I remember correctly, was nothing. 5 years had passed since I become David Sullivan. Owen, now Ryan, was 20 and working alongside me in our expanded construction business. We'd built something legitimate and profitable in Tennessee, specializing in custom homes for wealthy clients who appreciated quality craftsmanship. I was reviewing blueprints in our office when Ryan burst through the door, his face pale. Dad, we have a problem. I was at the hardware store picking up supplies, and Mrs. Henderson from the bank mentioned that some woman had been asking about David Sullivan Construction. She was showing your picture around town. My blood went cold. After 5 years of peace, Brielle had found me. Did Mrs. Henderson tell her anything? She said the woman seemed desperate, asking if you were married, if you had children, where you lived. Mrs. Henderson told her she didn't give out personal information about customers. That evening, I wasn't surprised when Brielle showed up at her house. I was working in the garage when I heard a car pull into the driveway. Through the window, I saw her stepping out of an old Honda Civic that had seen better days. She looked terrible, thin, prematurely aged, wearing discount store clothes that hung loose on her frame. The confident, well-dressed woman I'd married was gone, replaced by someone who looked like she'd been living rough for years. I walked outside to meet her, and the look on her face when she saw me was exactly what I'd hoped for. Shock, followed by something that might have been fear. Hello, Brielle, I said calmly. You're trespassing. Marvin, please. I just want to talk. My name is David Sullivan. Marvin Payne died 5 years ago when his wife destroyed his life. She took a step closer, and I could see tears forming in her eyes. I made a mistake. I know that now. I lost everything because of what I did. Good, I replied without emotion. That was the point. Ryan appeared in the garage doorway, now a tall, muscular young man who looked exactly like I had at his age. Brielle stared at him in shock. Owen, she whispered. My name is Ryan Sullivan, he said coldly. And you need to leave our property. Please, Brielle begged, looking between us. I'm homeless. I've been living in my car for 3 months. I just need help getting back on my feet. I pulled out my phone and showed her a photo that made her face go white. It was a picture of me and Sienna Hayes, the woman I'd been seeing for the past 2 years. We were standing in front of the beautiful house I'd built for us, both of us smiling genuinely. This is my life now, I said. Successful business, beautiful home, woman who actually loves me. Everything I should have had with you. But you threw it away for a man who abandoned you the moment things got difficult. Brielle's composure finally shattered completely. I have nothing left, Marvin. Nothing. I looked at the broken woman standing in my driveway and felt absolutely nothing. No pity, no anger, no residual love. Just the cold satisfaction of seeing justice served. Brielle, do you want to know what happened to Cody after you destroyed our marriage? She nodded weakly, probably hoping for some connection to her past. He used you to get information about our business, then threw you away the moment his wife found out about the affair. He declared bankruptcy, lost his company, and moved to Florida where he works as a supervisor for someone else's construction crew. He makes about $40,000 a year now. Her face crumpled. I know. I tried to contact him last year when I ran out of money. He told me I was a mistake he regretted and hung up on me. And now you think I'm going to rescue you? I was hoping, maybe for Owen's sake. Ryan, my son corrected sharply, doesn't have a mother. She died 5 years ago along with Marvin Payne. I reached into my truck and pulled out an envelope I'd been carrying for years, waiting for this moment. Brielle, this contains copies of all the evidence I gathered about your affair, your business sabotage, and your attempts to steal marital assets. I've kept it as insurance against the day you might try to cause problems for my new life. I handed her the envelope. Inside, you'll also find a cashier's check for $10,000. That's more generosity than you deserve, but I'm not a cruel man. She opened the envelope with shaking hands, staring at the check like she couldn't believe it was real. There are conditions, I continued. You cash that check, you disappear from our lives forever. You never contact me, Ryan, or anyone in this town again. You don't try to find out about my business or my personal relationships. This is the last kindness you'll ever receive from me. Brielle looked up from the check, tears streaming down her face. Marvin, I'm so sorry. If I could take it all back. But you can't, I said simply. You made your choices, and I made mine. The difference is, I chose to build something better instead of destroying what I had. Ryan stepped forward, his voice hard as steel. Ma'am, my father is giving you more than you deserve. I suggest you take it and leave before he changes his mind. Brielle stared at both of us for a long moment, probably realizing that her son had become a man she'd never know, raised by principles she'd abandoned. What do I do now? She whispered. What you should have done 5 years ago, I replied. Figure out how to build a life based on truth instead of lies. She got back in her car without another word. As she drove away, Ryan put his hand on my shoulder. Dad, you think we'll ever see her again? No, I said, watching her taillights disappear into the darkness. And that's exactly how it should be. Later that evening, Sienna came over for dinner. She knew my story, knew about my past, and had fallen in love with the man I'd become, not the one I used to be. How do you feel? She asked as we sat on the porch, watching the sunset over our property. Free, I said, and meant it completely. Finally, completely free.